So Cincinnati has sued Brendan Sorsby for violating the terms of his NIL contract, and they've taken him to federal court and sued him for $1 million. Every day, this channel becomes less of a college football page and more of a legal channel. Obviously, this is something that we're seeing happen more and more and more in this sport. Duke sued Darian Mensah for transferring to Miami, and then they settled outside of court. Georgia sued Damon Wilson for transferring to Missouri, and then Damon Wilson sued Georgia for interfering in the transfer portal. When Damon Williams briefly entered the portal, leaving Washington kind of shocked, they said they would be prepared to sue him for $4 million if he left. Obviously, he changed his mind and went back, and I'm sure the vibes are very normal and chill there. But this is just the beginning of schools suing athletes for violating their NIL contract, and I kind of just want to talk about how I feel about it. College football therapy, as they say. Before I share my thoughts and feelings, I'm Lucy. I make college football content, and I really, really would love it if you subscribe to this channel. Those are more of my thoughts and feelings. Please subscribe. Before we get to my thoughts and feelings, which I know you guys were so excited to hear about, let's just lay out the basics of the Cincinnati lawsuit for context. Brendan Sorsby signed an 18-month-long NIL deal with Cincinnati that would have ended mid-December 2026. So it would have taken him through this regular season, meaning 2 full seasons at Cincinnati. Obviously, that is not happening. Brendan Sorsby, pretty much immediately after the transfer portal opened, said, I am going to Texas Tech, and then Texas Tech put up a billboard of him in Times Square saying, hey, guess who's coming to be our quarterback next year? Because if there's one thing I know about living in New York, everybody here's a Texas Tech fan. And so Cincinnati was like very chill and very quiet about the whole thing up until yesterday when they came out and they said, hey, we are suing Brendan Sorsby for $1 million. Because in this contract that Brendan Sorsby signed, there was an exit fee which he agreed to, that if he were to leave Cincinnati ahead of the end of this deal, which is December 2026, if you look at the calendar, this is ahead of that, he would owe Cincinnati $1 million buyout. What Cincinnati is saying is that Brendan Sorsby has gotten bad advice from his representative who's telling him do not pay this. And so in the timeline that he was supposed to pay this $1 million, he hasn't. So Cincinnati has since taken him to federal court saying you owe us $1 million. My assumption on this is probably has been told by his rep, don't pay this, thinking they can get out of it. And also that Texas Tech most likely knew that this buyout was a thing and was probably prepared to pay it. Sorsby got around $875,000 for playing at Cincinnati last season. He's making anywhere from $4 to $6 million at Texas Tech this upcoming year, which is a lot of money. But not for Texas Tech. That's like casual oil money. And when it comes to these school player disputes, if you're familiar with me and familiar with this channel, you know I basically never ever side with the school or the NCAA or the governing body. I'm very like pro player, and I usually always side with them. I'm changing my tune on that for these type of situations that we find these athletes entering. If you sign a contract, you've signed a contract. That is supposed to mean something. And since these athletes aren't employees, it's very easy to bypass them, to leave, to transfer easily. There has to be something that these schools can do, especially these smaller schools, where you are able to enforce these contracts in one way or another. Because if Brendan Sorsby leaves and he pays his $1 million buyout fee, which he agreed to, which he signed that contract and agreed to that, and his agent and his representative went through every single word of that contract if they are a good, decent representative and agent, which is a big if. So it's something that you should just kind of have to abide by because it's what you agreed to. And that way, Cincinnati is able to, okay, now we have this $1 million that we can go and buy a quarterback, because obviously wins are going to fall when you're losing one of the more high-value quarterbacks in college football. It's something that a friend of mine who's a college basketball content creator, I'm sure you all have heard of him, Ryan Hammer. He's brilliant and smart and knows so much about college basketball that it actually overwhelms me sometimes. I'm like, how do you have this much ball knowledge? He has put out my favorite sort of solution to this transfer portal problem, which is that if a bigger school is going to poach a player from a smaller school, they should have to pay a fee. They should have to pay a we're taking your top guy fee so that they can use that money to replenish, to keep guys there, to get better players, so that you're not leaving these smaller schools completely desolate. Cincinnati is a Power 4 school, so it's not like Texas Tech went out and stole, an FCS quarterback or anything like that. But it is a better system than what we have now, which is you sign a contract, you violate the contract, you leave, you go do whatever you want to do, and nothing means anything anymore. These contracts have to mean something, or we've reached a level of chaos where there's just like no point of return. I keep saying it, but like, you signed a contract. You signed a contract and you agreed to an exit fee, which is a drop in the bucket for Texas Tech. I'm assuming Texas Tech will cover this exit fee, but you have to pay it. Like, you signed a contract. You don't just get to void it because you don't like it anymore. And so I think this is just going to have to be protocol moving forward if you have a long-term deal agreed to with a college football player, which is crazy to even say that you're agreeing to long-term deals with these young college football players who only have 4 to 5 years of eligibility. You have to follow through with your contract or you have to pay that exit fee. Like, it's just what you have to do. Going back to some of the earlier examples we mentioned, Duke and Daria Menso, we don't know what was settled for because that happened outside of court, but my assumption, which could be totally wrong, is that Miami probably paid Duke a pretty good chunk of change to buy him out of his contract, which Miami is, a bigger football program having to pay a smaller football program money because they've taken their best player. The whole reason that I think Damon Williams decided against entering the portal, because it seems like he was very much a done deal to go to LSU, was because Washington was prepared to sue him for $4 million and probably felt pretty confident that they would win that lawsuit, especially considering how late in the timeline that deal was signed. There just has to be consequences for violating a contract, because if there aren't, what's the point of signing a contract anyways? What value do you bring by paying this player X amount of money and having them sign a contract if you know they can void it without any penalty? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. At this point, I do think that I could do the Kim Kardashian bar exam without going to law school and pass it, with how much college football legal crap that we have had to deal with. That was a quick video, but I wanted to get my thoughts out on this because it's something that we're going to see a ton in the future, and we've already seen plenty of now. This will become the norm. I think every offseason we are going to start seeing schools sue players on a pretty regular basis going forward, which is a very weird sentence to say, unless there is some sort of grand action taken with college football to fix some of these issues, but I can tell you right now that's not going to happen. That ain't happening, so I don't even know why I said it. It's just not real. But if you liked this video, if you want more quick college football content from your favorite college football creator, I hope I'm your favorite college football creator. If I'm not, that would really hurt my feelings. If I'm not, don't let me know in the comments. I don't want to hear it. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment on these videos, or maybe I'll sue you. Maybe that's joking. I'm not going to sue you. Probably. Joking.